Thank you. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripasindoevacha patitanam pavenabhyo vaishnavabhyo namaha. Omigyan Tirumandasya Gyanjana Salakaya Chakshamitam Yena Tashmai Shri Guru Namaha. Trinarapi Sunichana Tarorapi Sahishtana Amanina Manadena Kitne Sadari Takte Nukampam Susamikshamano Bunjana Vitmakritam Vipakam Hitvakapabividam Namaste Jivatayo Mukti Sadaya Bak Vachavegam Manashakrodavegam Jivavegam Uradapasthavegam Etam Vegam Yoviseheta Dira Savapimam Pritvim Sasisyat Anya Balasta Sunyam Gyan Kamadhyana Vritam Anukalenya Krishna Shilanam Bhakti Uttama Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Grata Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. My Dandavat pranams, my infinite Shishtanga Dandavat pranams to my glorious and merciful Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Swami Maharaj, and similarly to the personality without whom I wouldn't be here, none of us would be here probably, Srila Prabhupada, to Parampara, to Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, to Rupa Goswami, to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Shri Radha and Krishna. And my Dandavat pranams to all those who make the effort to give their Shravan to make the Mercy Grace Lila program possible, all those listening on Facebook and YouTube and in recordings hereafter. Haribol and Dandavat pranams, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. I have to say I'm extremely excited because this is the, you could say this is this is two sessions at the same time. It is the last session of Mercy Grace Lila for 2021. And in a sense, certainly for me, it feels like the first glorification of Kartik 2021. So just as a reminder, what we've actually covered throughout the whole year is we've managed to have 2 programs a week, pretty much every week, other than during the Navadvip Parikram. And each week we've managed to glorify every Acharya disappearing, appearing, and disappearing that week to receive their mercy, to beg for their mercy, without which we cannot be connected to these transcendental Leelas and places. And then the other occasion during the week, we've been hearing pastimes of Navadvip Leela and then Kartik Leela, leading up all the way to 2021 Kartik, which is now starting, you could say now, but officially on Wednesday. And it's not only the holy month of Kartik, Damodar month, Radharani's month, it's also the 100th anniversary year of our Srila Gurudev's Kartik, and it's therefore a very special Kartik, as Braj Kartik Parikram is such an important part of the calendar as taught to us by Srila Gurudev, who wants us to be sambandik with the Leela, with the pastimes, with the personalities, with the transcendental world. And the way to do that is to immerse ourselves into Navadvip Leela and Kartik Leela. So officially it starts on Wednesday. There'll be 2 programs every day, 10 a.m. UK time until around 12, maybe a little bit later. We're very fortunate. Sripada Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaja is speaking every day. And then in the evening at 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, we'll have 2 speakers speaking on the various locations. We have a plethora of speakers. There'll be kirtan to open and close. There'll be recordings every day. You can fully immerse yourself in one or both of these programs every day. The schedule will be sent out pretty much straight up within a couple of hours of this program. So you'll all be informed, and what an exciting Kartik this is. So Maharaji, I'm very happy to hand the Vyasa-san to you to share with us the Lila of Durvasa. Haribol.
Jai Yashoda, yes, very exciting build-up. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Om Maganat Mirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat Pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astou Tarasara Shishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again, millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved, Srila Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astou Tarasara Shishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And all the Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord in attendance of this program and anyone who may be listening in the future. Jai. So as Yashoda Prabhu was just saying, this is basically, we are on Parikrama now because the Mathura Parikrama, which preludes the official Kartik Parikrama beginning on Wednesday, began about 5 or 6 days ago. So we will be wandering a little bit in Mathura today, and then we will take a boat across the Jamuna from Vishram Ghat, and we will reach the amazing mandir of Durvasa Rsi Ashram. So on this particular day, I'm not sure of the schedule of the big parikrama this year, but they also could well be visiting Durvasa Rsi today. I'm not sure. And it would be around at this very time in UK time. About 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock is when they would be visiting. So first of all, we'll just be aware, like Yashoda Prabhu was saying, that we are about to embark on this amazing journey of all of the 12 principal forests of Braj over the next 31 days. Getting the flavor and the moods of the divine pastimes that took place there. Vrindavan is the backdrop for all of Radha and Krishna's pastimes. And if we can immerse our consciousness even for a moment within the forests and groves of Vrindavan, beside the Jamuna, beside Giriraj Govardhan, then our life will surely become successful and will be supported in our meditation, etc., on our focus, on our cultivating our devotion to the divine couple, which is our intention. So today we'll come to the banks of Jamuna on the western side. First of all, if you're standing in Mathura and, oh, Manjalali Didi, maybe you can just throw a map of Mathura up on the screen, and we'll try and orientate people.
Can you see it?
I can see it perfectly. Okay. I'm expanding it. I hope others can see it as well nicely. Okay, yes, so yes, Durvasa. So you can see the sign at the top. It says to Vrindavan. So that is north. That is north where, that's right. So it's north where your cursor is now. So we are coming to the eastern bank of the Jamuna. We see Jamuna, and if you can go to number 3, if you can pinch out number 3, it's almost, yes, you've got it. So that's number 3. This is Vishram Ghat. And traditionally, many years ago, we would always perform our Sankalpa from Vishram Ghat with Srila Gurudev before we all drove across to our various places of residence in Vrindavan, or sometimes we would drive out to Kamyaval and camp out there for 3 or 4 days, or we'd go to Nandagan, camp out there for 2 or 3 days, etc., go to Govardhan. And we would move around quite a lot previously in the mid-60s for our parikrama. So we come to Vishram Ghat, where you can see the cursor is now on number 3. So Vishram means a resting place. So when Krishna was enticed to come to Mathura by Akrura, and deal, we can say, with Kamsa. Kamsa was such a massive demon of unbelievable proportions, strength more than 10,000 elephants. Putana also had the strength of 10,000 elephants, and neither could defeat the other. So Kamsa was very smart and made a treaty with Putana, but she was also a massive demon, 12 miles high. So we can imagine the power of Kamsa and the influence he had over Braj for the first, we can say 10, 11 years of Krishna's manifest pastimes in Vrindavan. So Krishna arrives in Vrindavan, and then he enters the arena. He's just killed Kuvaliyapita with a slap from his hand, and they've ripped out, Balaram and Krishna have ripped out the two tusks from Kuvaliyapita, and they stride into the arena, Kamsa's wrestling arena that he's manifested in order just to try to kill Krishna. All of this great endeavor. He's terrified, of course, as we know, of Krishna, because the oracle has proclaimed that he will die by the 8th son of Devaki. So Krishna is that 8th son. So Krishna and Balaram, they enter the arena amazingly with these two elephant tusks, one over each other's shoulder, and just looking so splendid. And then we know the pastime here where Chanura and Mustika, these enormous wrestlers, they face off against these young boys, Krishna and Balaram. And remarkably, to all of the assembled Mathuravasis witnessing this event, Krishna and Balaram completely defeat these two mighty wrestlers. And then even other wrestlers come out, and Balaram immediately just kills them all. And at that time, the music increases like to a joyful capacity. And all the cowherd boys who are present in the arena, they jump onto the stage with Krishna, and they're congratulating him, and they're dancing around, and they're just in a very exuberant mood. And then Kamsa, in his last desperate bid for control, stands up and screams for them to stop the music immediately, to immediately kill Devaki and Vasudeva, who are also there in the assembly, and to kill Krishna and Balaram straight away. So he's thundering out these very harsh orders to his men. And Krishna at this point becomes angry, as we know the pastime, and leaps up to the balcony where Kamsa is there. And before Kamsa has time to draw his sword or shield, etc., Krishna throws him off the balcony onto the canvas, and then he leaps down on top of him and just begins slapping his face until he leaves his body totally. So this is an incredibly dramatic, heroic act. So Krishna is the personification of hero. But a hero always needs to have those who acknowledge the hero. And previously in Vrindavan, it was always the gopis themselves who would immediately congratulate Krishna after he'd killed any demon. So when Krishna kills Kamsa, then he drags his body around the arena just to show all the Mathuravasis that this great demon is in fact dead. He actually has no life left, because the residents, they can't quite believe that this has happened. It's such a shock for them that it seemed like Kamsa was invincible, utterly invincible. And now Krishna has just rid the earth of this demonic influence in a moment. So Krishna had to convince everyone that he really was dead. That's why he dragged his body around the arena. But then Krishna goes, after this incident, he goes to Vishram Ghat. And he comes to Vishram Ghat in a somewhat meditative mood, he's unhappy that the gopis aren't with him to honor him as the great hero that's just killed Kamsa. The cowherd boys have glorified him, but still the speciality of the gopis' prem is missing from Krishna's heart at that moment. So in separation, he's coming to Vishram Ghat. Vishram means a place of rest. So in a sense, he's resting in Vishram Ghat. He's just bathing his hands, etc., and resting. But at this point, Krishna is extremely unhappy and feeling a great mood of separation from the gopis. And meanwhile, just north, the gopis themselves, they know instantly. The birds, etc., will have informed the gopis. They know directly that Krishna has killed this enormous demon. The atmosphere has changed. Suddenly, this heavy weight of this demonic pressure has actually left. So they know that Krishna has indeed killed Kamsa. And they also know that Krishna is going to be missing them greatly, because they know that when he kills a demon, he appreciates them being around to congratulate him, as any hero would like to be congratulated for his heroic acts, etc. So Krishna is lamenting and the gopis are lamenting. And at this time, it's described that the gopis' tears enter the Jamuna. And Krishna's tears of separation from the gopis also enters the Jamuna. So these two tears, they fuse together within the waters of the Jamuna. And this is the first meeting of in separation between Krishna and the gopis directly. So this takes place at Vishram Ghat. So at this location of Vishram Ghat, we are standing there today, right now at this point, and we look across the river from Vishram Ghat, and we see the beautiful temple rising of Durvasa Rsi Ashram. Maybe Manjalali can put that on the screen. So if you've got your bearings from that map, now you put the Durvasa Ashram, Manjalali, the actual
you want to see the map again?
Temple itself.
Oh, sorry.
No, the temple. Put the temple on. I hope the devotees have got something of the geography in connection with Jamuna Devi. So we're looking across from the Vishram Ghat to Durvasa. Now this is what we'll see. Anjalali, if you've got that map, that picture of the temple of Durvasa.
Do you see it?
No, put the temple on. I don't have the temple. I just have the map.
I mean, I see the temple. Yes,
I want to see the temple form, not just the map with the temple on it.
Okay, I have the temple now. Yashodananda, what do you see? Do you see the map? You are on mute.
Yeah, it's just the map showing.
I see the map. I'm wondering why.
Oh, that's strange. Why?
Yeah, and you're on share. Are you still sharing your screen?
Yes. Okay, I will stop and do it again. One sec. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
That's strange.
So we look across the Jamuna, and then we.
You see it now?
Now, and
okay.
then we see this temple here, this beautiful temple. Now, this temple was totally built by my Gurudev in about 96, 97. And this is honoring, of course, the great yogi, Durvasa Rsi. So my Gurudev was offered this temple in about 94. These brahmanas came from Ishapur, which is the name of the little village here, and they offered it to Gurudev, but Gurudev wouldn't accept it until he had all the papers in order. So he told them to go to the courts, etc., and get the papers in full order. And then that took about 18 months or so. And as soon as everything was arranged, then Gurudev immediately went there and built this temple. What we see now, we could see the top part of it, but underneath there's also 3 floors going in to the temple itself. So this was the location of Durvasa Rsi in Satya Yuga. So if you can leave that screen off now. Yes, leave it off, Manjulala. So in such a yuga, there's the beautiful pastime of the advent, we can say, of Durvasa. His mother, Anasuya, was considered one of the most chaste ladies in the universe. Her husband is Atri Rishi. Her husband is a mind-born son of Lord Brahma. So an extremely powerful yogi, extremely powerful personality. And he had a desire in his heart to have a son like God or like Vishnu, but he wasn't quite sure who was the most powerful, Brahma, Shiva, or Vishnu. So in his meditation, he was wanting a son actually from each of them. So this is how Krishna arranges for him to have a son from each of these personalities. So Anasuya, his wife, Atri Rishi's wife, was considered, as I said, one of the most chaste ladies in the universe. So Narad Rishi, in order to bring this this advent about of Durvasa's birth, etc., he was proclaiming through the celestial airwaves the glories of Anasuya's chastity. And then Saraswati, Lord Brahma's wife, and Lakshmi Devi, Vishnu's wife, and Uma, Shivji's wife, they heard this proclamation from Narad about the exemplary chastity of Anasuya, and they were a little bit pinched because they were thinking they were the most chaste ladies in the universe. And here was Narad singing, chanting the glories of Anasuya. So they wanted to conspire to bring Anasuya down, so to speak. This is how the pastime unfolds. So they requested their husbands to please go to the ashram of Anasuya and request some offerings from her, but to request her to give those offerings to them while she was naked. In other words, to compromise her chastity. This was their idea. So the three husbands, they didn't really agree with this idea particularly, but still they had to bow to the pressure of their wives, and they followed their wives' orders, and they came to the ashram of Anasuya, and they were disguised as mendicants, and they dutifully begged some offering of fruits, etc., from Anasuya. And when she went to give them the offerings, then they requested her, you please, we won't accept these offerings unless you give them to us fully naked. So Anasuya thought this was a little strange request. So she was a little perturbed, didn't quite know what to do. So she put the plate down, and then she just said, you just wait a few minutes and I'll just speak with my husband. So then she ran up to the mountain cave where Atri Rishi was meditating, and she revealed to Atri Rishi the situation, what was happening. And then Atri Rishi could see in his meditation that this was Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu had arrived in his ashram. So he told his wife, you do whatever you feel you have to do is appropriate, but these three are going to become your sons, your little children. So Anasuya came back down, and then she said to Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, she said, yes, I will become naked, but on the condition that you three become little children sitting on my lap. So at that point, due to her powerful austerities, she was able to induce these three personalities to become little children sitting on her lap, taking her breast milk, etc. So these three boys, they became her children. This from Shivji was Durvasa, and from Vishnu is Dattatreya, and from Lord Brahma is Chandranath or Somanath. There's two names given to the offspring of Lord Brahma.
Would you mind just repeating those names again slowly?
So Chandranath from Lord Brahma, Dattatreya from Vishnu, and Durvasa Rsi from Shivji.
Thank you.
So that's the birth of Durvasa. After a very short time, the wives understood that something had happened drastically to their husbands. And they requested Narad, what's going on? What's happening? And he says, oh, don't you know? They've all become Anasuya's little sons. So now the three wives really panicked. And they disguised themselves as earthly ladies, and they came to the ashram of Anasuya, and they said, Anasuya asked them what, welcomed them, and then asked them what they wanted. And they said, actually, these three boys are our husbands, and we request they come back and fill their heavenly posts. So Anasuya said, yes, I grant you that benediction, but their expansions will remain with me. So Durvasa, Dattatreya, and Chandranath, they remain with Anasuya in the ashram, which is fulfilling the desire of Atri Rishi. So this is the pastime of the manifestation. If you go to Durvasa Rsi, if you're fortunate to go there at any time, all of these pastimes are depicted in beautiful dioramas inside the temple complex of Durvasa Ashram, so that the whole populace can fully understand this pastime for posterity. So then Durvasa Rsi, he followed the moods of his exalted father and mother and took to the path of meditation and became the most powerful yogi conceivable. He was a Brahmin yogi and very, very powerful. He could do all kinds of remarkable activities, and he had cities and so on. Very, very powerful personality. And then one day he heard about this great emperor, king, Ambarish, who was just situated across the Jamuna in his palace in the vicinity of Mathura. And somehow or other, Durvasa Rsi decided to visit him. But Durvasa Rsi is famous throughout all the 4 yugas for his very cantankerous and tricky behavior. We can tell many stories about Durvasa. There are so many pastimes about Durvasa. But I'm just telling this pastime now about Ambarish, which is most prominent in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 9th canto. So Durvasa Rsi, he arrived at the palace of Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj was the king, was the emperor of the entire planet at that time. This is in Satya Yuga. And Ambarish Maharaj was a great saintly Rishi, a great Raja Rishi. And it's described, this very beautiful verse, Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayor, that Ambarish Maharaj, he used his hands for cleaning the temple. He was the emperor of the whole world, but he cleaned the temple with his hands. He used his feet for walking to the temple or dancing in front of the deity. He used his tongue for only tasting Krishna Prasad. He used his sense of touch just for massaging the deity with oils, etc. So all of his senses were fully engaged in service to Krishna. And at this particular time, when Ambarish Maharaj decided to visit him, he was performing a very long Ekadashi Brat. And he had extended his Brat, and he was performing this Brat for a whole year. He was following the Mahadvadasi vow. In those days, they would perform these very strict Vrats. And it came time for the breaking of the vow of his austerity. And this is called the Paran, of course. And this is most essential to break it exactly on time. Otherwise, you compromise the whole benefit of your observing Ekadashi. And it's the same for us today. We should also be very careful to note the time for the breaking of our Ekadashis, and as far as possible, always try to break it right on time, or certainly within the time frame. So Durvasa, Ambarish, he was very conscious of this point, and he was with the Brahmins, and they were calculating the exact moment when he should break. The exact moment when he should break, Durvasa Rishi appeared. And Ambarish Maharaj, honoring the great Brahma yogi, was very happy to see him and welcome him with all due respect and so on, and immediately invited him to accept prasadam. But Durvasa said, yes, I will definitely accept prasadam, but first I just have to say my anik in the Jamuna nearby. So he went to the Jamuna, and he was with his 60,000 followers, and they were all in the Jamuna chanting their aniks. But of course, they're Brahma yogis, so their aniks take a long time. So now the calculated time for the paran had almost expired. So Ambarish became very concerned, and he conspired with the Brahmanas there. What should they do? And he had to make the decision between honoring Bhakti Devi or honoring the material maryad of etiquette in relationship to not eating before he had fed his guest, Durvasa. The etiquette is, if you ask someone to take a meal with you, and then you take before they arrive, this is breaking the very beautiful etiquette that is in place to enhance respectful dealings, principally. This creates a respectful atmosphere by following these principles carefully. So Ambarish spoke with the Brahmanas, and they decided, okay, if you just take 3 drops of Charanamrita, this is breaking the vow, and at the same time, it's not breaking the vow. It's actually both, because you're not actually eating anything, you're just taking 3 drops of Charanamrita, and this will suffice. So together they decided, yes, this will be the perfect compromise. So the very second that Ambarish Maharaj had taken those 3 drops of Charanamrita, of course, Durvasa Rishi, knowing in his meditation what Ambarish Maharaj had done, immediately came into the palace, and he was so furious and angry and began chastising so strongly Ambarish Maharaj, condemning him totally for being the emperor of the world, yet not knowing what was the proper etiquette. He'd invited a great yogi for prasadam, and yet he had taken prasadam before he had offered to his guest. And in his absolute fury, he grabbed one of the locks of hair on his head, and he dashed it to the ground with a mantra. And from that lock of hair came an enormous fiery Rakshasi, a demon, Kritya. This fiery demon appeared right in front of Ambarish Maharaj. They were all just absolutely astonished. First of all, at the ferocity of Durvasa's anger, and then producing this fiery demon. And then Durvasa directed this demon towards Ambarish. And Ambarish, being an absolute 100% bhakta, Ambarish Maharaj is described as a Shuddha bhakta. In the list of bhaktas that we read in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, the first we know is Prahlad, he's a Jnani bhakta. The second is Ambarish, he's a Shuddha bhakta. The third is Hanumanji, he's a Premi bhakta. The fourth are the 5 Pandavas, they are Para bhaktas. And then the 5th is Uddhav, he's a Prematur bhakta. So these are the 5 descriptions of the gradations of bhaktas, and Ambarish Maharaj comes second as a Shuddha bhakta. He's not a Siddha. Prahlad Maharaj is a Siddha, but Prahlad Maharaj is a Jnani bhakta. So his devotion is somewhat less than Ambarish Maharaj's. So when this demon came towards Ambarish Maharaj was totally fearless. He just stood with his hands in pranam, bowing his head to whatever the Lord in his will chooses to either punish me or save me, whatever is his desire. So he was in a completely submissive mood towards this arrangement of the Lord. And Krishna, of course, knowing the absolute devotion of Ambarish, immediately sent his Sudarsana chakra, which came whizzing through the air and totally incinerated that demon to dust, right in front of all the Brahmanas and Ambarish Maharaj. And then this Sudarsana chakra turned its heatful wrath on Durvasa Rsi. Now, was Durvasa Rsi a bhakta of any description? No, he was an impersonal yogi, a Brahmavad yogi, who was just concerned with his own great power, etc. That's why his pride had shown in such an angry way. And then Ambarish wasn't standing there in any type of submission. He just ran for his life. And the heat of this Sudarsana chakra was chasing him. It chased him all over the universe. He bounced everywhere. Durvasa Rsi was capable of traveling under the oceans, which he did, and still Sudarsana chakra was hounding him. And then he was flying in the sky, and Sudarsana chakra was right on his tail. He was feeling the heat of this immense chakra, practically singeing his hair and back. He was running everywhere, even to the lower planetary systems, throughout Swaga, etc. He ran everywhere. And finally he came in great distress to Lord Brahma. He went to Satyaloka, to Lord Brahma, and he begged for help, requested Lord Brahma to please help him in this condition. And Lord Brahma said, I am incapable. This Sudarsana chakra has come from Lord Vishnu himself. You must go to him. He's the only one who can counteract this chakra. It's his chakra. So then Durvasa, he comes to the milk ocean and he has audience of Lord Vishnu, and he begs Lord Vishnu to please relieve him of the burning heat from this Sudarsana chakra attacking him right on his tail behind him. And at this time, Krishna, he says these beautiful verses, Aham bhakto paradino yashvatantra idvadvija sadubhya grasta hridayo bhaktiya bhakta jana priya. He's saying that I am completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I am not independent because of my devotees, because my devotees are completely dependent on me and they've given up all material desires. And he says, what to speak of just my devotee, even the devotees of my devotee, they are totally controlling me. So how can I possibly control the wrath of this Sudarsana chakra, which is protecting my great devotee, Ambarish Maharaj? So now Durvasa Rsi, he was sort of pulled up short. And at this very point, he started to appreciate the immense power of the Vaishnava, of the devotee. He had never before been exposed to this. He hadn't appreciated the nature of a Vaishnava at all, ever. That had never come into his purview previously. So when he understood the devotion that Ambarish Maharaj had towards Lord Vishnu, gradually that conception seeped into his consciousness, and he realized that he had to go back, and the only way to stop this fiery chakra incinerating him was to beg forgiveness from from Ambarish Maharaj. So he comes back to the palace, and Ambarish Maharaj, meanwhile, has not taken a thing. He hasn't eaten anything this whole time. He's just been standing there praying, and he's been praying to Sudarsana chakra, please, if there's any credit that I've incurred through my devotional service, you please don't incinerate this Brahmavad yogi. I'm begging you not to incinerate this Brahmavad yogi. So this was the reason why Sudarsana chakra hadn't burnt to ashes Durvasa previously, is because of the mercy of Ambarish Maharaj. And when Durvasa, he begs forgiveness from Ambarish Maharaj is so humble, he bends that he picks him up, he embraces him, and he forgives him instantly. And immediately he just wants to feed him. And this exchange is very, very beautiful because it's transforming the heart of Durvasa Rishi from a Brahmavad yogi into a Vaishnava. Because from this day forth, in all the other subsequent pastimes, Durvasa is completely submissive to Krishna in his many incarnations. So this is the pastime that we glorify when we come to Durvasa ashram. And we should understand simultaneously what was Durvasa Rishi doing, because he's Vishnu himself, he's Shivji himself. So he's tricky himself. While he was running, being chased by the Sudarshan Chakra, what were all the inhabitants of all the different universes saying? Oh, why is this Brahma Rishi being chased by the Sudarshan Chakra? Oh, don't you know? He offended the great devotee Ambarish Maharaj. Oh, what a great devotee Ambarish Maharaj is. Everyone was glorifying Ambarish Maharaj. So this was the success of this particular pastime, that actually ultimately everyone was glorifying the great devotee Ambarish Maharaj. So this is a very beautiful story that we were speaking regularly in front of Srila Gurudev. So many occasions Gurudev would love this pastime. Gurudev also loved Lord Shiva, just like all the other acharyas. Rupa Goswami would always live near to Shivji. Sanatan Goswami, Bankandi Mahadev would live always close to Shivji. All the acharyas had a great affinity for Shivji. Shivji is the greatest Vaishnava. So my Gurudev, when he was offered this property, he went and built this incredibly beautiful temple and filled it with these beautiful dioramas to educate the people on the other side of the Jamuna about the glories of Radha and Krishna. Because on the altar there, if Manjalali would like to put up on the screen the very beautiful deities in Durvasa ashram, today we can go there and see these very, very...
Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. So this is Radha Binod Bihari. And this is a recent shot. Right now today, there's one devotee called Rasa Bihari Prabhu. Very solid devotee. He's been there about 18, 19 years, probably almost 20 years. And he's just maintained the worship. You can see, if you look closely, at how nicely they are decorated, dressed, flower garlanded, etc. And their worship is very, even though he practically most of the time is alone. He's cooking for the deities, he's dressing the deities, he's performing the artis. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 brahmacharis there, sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 5, but he's just there all the time. His name is Rasa Bihari Prabhu, and Srila Gurudev disciple, dedicated to Srila Gurudev. He was ordered by Srila Gurudev to take care of this ashram in Durvasa. Manjalali, if you can show us the whole altar, or the other personalities on the altar, because there is Jamuna Devi.
I just have the split version, so here's Jamuna Devi.
Okay, so now you can see Jamuna Devi. You can't actually see her carrier in this picture, but at her feet there's a huge crocodile. Jamuna Devi rides on a crocodile. There's only 3 other Jamuna Devi deities, to my knowledge, in Vrindavan itself. So this is a very extraordinary deity, a very, very beautiful deity. And she's there with her carrier, the crocodile. And then if we scroll down further, we can see the others.
You're mute now.
You can see Durvasa Rishi himself on the other side of the altar. And it's a very interesting pastime about Durvasa Rishi. He's always causing confusion. Even in our lifetimes, he's caused, difficulties, because when Srila Gurudev first moved out there, the local residents of the village would not tolerate that Durvasa was taken away from the center point of the altar. He had always been in the center of the altar. That's how the people of the village had always worshipped him. And now my Gurudev wanted to replace them with Radha and Krishna worship and Mahaprabhu. This was my Gurudev's plan, to educate people into the worship of Radha and Krishna and Sachinanda and Gaura Hari. But the villagers wouldn't tolerate it. They were ready to actually attack and do all kinds of heavy things. So my Gurudev had to leave Durvasa in the center of the altar for almost a year. And then one day, my Gurudev is very tricky also. One day he came and there was a big festival happening. And my Gurudev just called 4 or 5 of the brahmacharis and told them to get everyone out of the temple. There must have been about 2,000 or 3,000 people there. It was on a festival day, big festival day. And we chased everyone out of the temple. Then my Gurudev closed all the doors, put the locks on all the doors. And then he quickly got the brahmacharis and us to change the deities around, to put Radha and Krishna and Mahaprabhu in the center stage and put Durvasa on the right of Krishna, which was his rightful place to be. And then when everything was set up, then he just opened the doors again and all the residents came in and they were like stunned, they were shocked. And because it was such a beautiful arrangement, somehow or other, they were able to accept it at that time. But that's just an example of the ever presence of Durvasa Rishi's cantankerous behavior. And there's a long story about that also. It was in the papers how some of the devotees got put in jail. There was all kinds of fights were going on at that time. It was a very rough time. And Durvasa was at the heart of it, basically. So that pastime took place. And my Gurudev established now this incredible temple. And on Vasant Panchami in particular is the day when everyone goes to beg Durvasa Rishi for a boon. On this day, traditionally, all across India, they know that if you go and ask Durvasa for any benediction, he will grant it on this day of Vasant Panchami. So this temple actually is built for massive crowd flows. There's a huge entrance way and there's a huge exit way. And the pilgrims, they come around, they circumambulate, etc. They take darshan, and then they go out the exit route. So it's it's designed for massive crowd flow. So on this day of Vasant Panchami, traditionally, is the day that the gopis in Dwarpa Yuga, they cross over the Jamuna with various offerings. They have all these beautiful sweets and so on. They also want to take darshan of Durvasa Rishi at this point, and they want to beg for his mercy to meet with Krishna. But when they come to the Jamuna is totally flooded. Perhaps some of you have seen in the rainy season, the flood water goes across almost 2 kilometers. It's flooded. So they were standing there in astonishment with their offerings, wondering how to cross the turbulent Jamuna. And then Krishna came. So they requested Krishna, how can we cross the Jamuna to give these offerings to Durvasa? And Krishna said, just tell Jamuna Devi that Krishna is a complete brahmachari and he has never consorted ever with any young women in his life. So the gopis thought, well, this is a strange thing to say. We were just with Krishna yesterday and he was flirting with us and joking with us like anything. But still, they take Krishna's word for it and they proclaim this to Jamuna Devi. And immediately, to their astonishment, Jamuna Devi makes a beautiful path where they can just walk straight across the Jamuna. So they very quickly gather all their sweets and they cross the Jamuna. And then they come to Durvasa Rishi. And then they offer all of these beautiful ladus, Amrita Keli, etc., all to Durvasa, who immediately consumes everything, all of their pots. There's thousands of gopis, and he consumes all of their offerings immediately. And then the gopis are very satisfied, and then they make their request to have more lengthy darshans with that beautiful cowherd boy, Sri Krishna. This is their prayer that they are all submitting in their hearts to Durvasa, and Durvasa is granting their benediction. But when they come to go back, again, they see that Jamuna is totally so turbulent and extensive. So they turn to Durvasa and say, how are we going to cross now? And Durvasa says, well, how did you come here? And they explain, well, Krishna said that he's a brahmachari and he never consorts with any women. And immediately Jamuna Devi gave us passage to cross. And then Durvasa tells the gopis, you tell Mother Jamuna that Durvasa Rishi never eats anything except durva grass. And again, the gopis are looking at Durvasa thinking, you've just consumed all these sweets. And then you're telling us to say this to Jamuna Devi? Nevertheless, they have faith, complete dharmic faith in Durvasa and his position, etc. So they say this to Mother Jamuna, that Durvasa Rishi never eats anything except durva grass. And to their astonishment again, Mother Jamuna, she makes a beautiful path where they can all quickly cross and reach the other side, back into Vrindavan side. And then they really are bewildered and they go to Krishna. They say, what's happening here? You know, you told us to say that you never consort with any women, etc. And Durvasa just said he never eats anything except durva grass, but we saw him in front of us consume all our offerings, so we don't understand, we're confused. And Krishna explains, I am not the doer. I am the spirit soul, realized spirit soul within, and I don't take part in any material activity whatsoever. This is all like nimitic, so to speak, and I'm only internally absorbed. So in fact, I do nothing. And it's exactly the same with Durvasa. He in fact does nothing. He is not the doer. Prakriti kriyamanani guna. What's that? This verse is saying that the spirit soul is the active ingredient, the eternal ingredient within the material body, not the material body itself. The material body is not actually doing anything. It's the spirit soul that is activating the material body. So this is this pastime. It's not so easy to grasp. We have to hear it a number of times to actually appreciate it. But the principle is what I've just shared with you all. So this was pacifying for the gopis, that Krishna had explained it in such a way. So this is two of the pastimes of Durvasa. And of course, we know the other pastime where he granted Radharani, because Radharani served him so well when he was walking through Braj, the benediction that any foodstuffs that she cooks will increase the person's strength and longevity, that their life will be very long. So this was how Mother Yashoda was able to induce Radharani to come to Nandagan every day and cook for Krishna. So Durvasa, he's kind of sprinkled throughout the 4 yugas in many, many different pastimes and leelas. There's beautiful leela also when he goes to Dwarka at one point, and he stays there and he requests Krishna at 2 o'clock in the morning to make sweet rice immediately. And then when Krishna complies very submissively, he tells Krishna, now you put that sweet rice all over your body. So Krishna doesn't bat an eyelid. He immediately puts that sweet rice all over his body, except for the soles of his feet. And then he tells Rukmini to harness the chariot, Krishna's chariot in the stable area, to herself. He wants to go on a ride and he wants Rukmini to pull the chariot. This is Durvasa's nature, very cantankerous like this. And then Rukmini, she complies very humbly also, and she puts the horse harness on her neck, etc. She starts to pull this chariot. Durvasa, he jumps into the chariot and he has a stick raised as if he's going to beat Rukmini to pull the chariot. And at that time, all the Dwarkavasis who are watching this pastime with astonishment, they all become furious. And then when they become agitated sufficiently, then Durvasa jumps down and he disappears. And then he comes back a little while later and he says, he starts to glorify Krishna for his tolerant mood, for putting the sweet rice all over his body. And he proclaims that there is not a weapon on earth that can possibly penetrate anywhere where this sweet rice has touched. But the sweet rice didn't touch the soles of his feet, because we know the pastime in the 11th canto, when the hunter Jara, he pierces the heel of Krishna's foot, thinking it's the face of a deer. And this is when Krishna externally leaves the world from this. So because Durvasa's protection didn't reach down to his heels. And then he says to Rukmini, because of your compliance and tolerant nature, you will be proclaimed forever as the principal queen of Dwarka. And we know that actually Rukmini is Chandravali in Krishna's pastimes, and Satyabhama is Radharani in Krishna's pastimes. So it's switched around in Dwarka that Chandravali is the queen of Dwarka, and Satyabhama is not proclaimed as the queen. When we know the pastime when Narad comes and asks Krishna to give the Parijat flower to his best queen, he gives to Rukmini. And we know the story of Satyabhama. She becomes like incensed with anger at that time, not being acknowledged as the queen. So that's another pastime. So these are all many, many pastimes in connection with Durvasa Rishi. And today we go to this beautiful ashram and we celebrate the speciality of Durvasa. And this is always the prelude to our Kartik Parikrama, as Yashoda Prabhu has mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. So we are getting ready for 30 days now of wandering through the forests and kunjas and around Govardhan Hill of glorious Vrindavan Dham. And we are getting strength from the benediction that Durvasa is able to give us, particularly to follow any sankalpa, any vows we choose to make. These vows are very important because every time you want to break that vow, so to speak, say, for example, you decide not to eat sweets during the month of Kartik. Every time you want a sweet, what do you think about? You're thinking, oh no, this is the Kartik month and I've taken a vow to desist from sweets, like that. So whatever we choose, according to our desires and inspiration, to abstain from, already we're abstaining from so many different foodstuffs, no eggplant, tomatoes, honey, etc., different types of oil. We've already been doing this for the last 3 months, but now everything is going to intensify in this last month, and we can take a vow, a vrat. Already in our Kartik month, we're going to honor Damodar every single day with a lamp. We're going to sing the beautiful Damodar Astakam every day and offer a lamp every day. We can sing the beautiful bhajans that Srila Gurudev requested us to sing, this Radha Kripa Kataksha and the Nandanastakam. So we will be singing that every single day of our cart. This is our brat, this niyama seva. Niyama seva means we're following the 8 yamas of the day carefully, understanding what is Krishna's pastimes through the 8 yamas of the day, starting with Nishanta Lila, then Lila, then Purvana Lila, Madhyana Lila, Apurvana Lila, Shyayam Lila, Pradosh Lila, and Ratri Lila. We're going to follow carefully through the day, these 8 yamas of the day, and perform our various sevas, increased seva. The Kartik month is incredibly filled with auspiciousness that we can really propel ourselves along in our devotion during this month of Kartik. Genuinely, we can, if we take any sort of vow, really, to determinedly follow. Krishna will give us strength, and Durvasa Rishi will also support us in our vows to follow that through. So this is a wonderful meditation today, because we've only got tomorrow to properly put this in place before we officially come to the banks of the Jamuna and take our sankalpa officially by offering the waters back to the Jamuna and officially proclaiming our various vows internally that we're going to stick to for the month. It's so enriching and wealth-giving and auspicious for the devotee to do this, to become sober and serious for this month, because in that mentality, in that state of consciousness, Krishna can funnel so much potency into the heart of the devotee. When the devotee's mind is sober, it's come down the temperature of material sensual pleasure seeking, that when that is reduced even a fraction, then the accessibility of these higher states of consciousness is very easy to actually catch on, to touch on, especially the chanting of the holy name, especially if we consider, can I increase a single round during the month of Kartik every day? And what its intention is for is that so after that month of Kartik, we will perhaps be inspired to carry on those vows. It's like we often proclaim at the end of Kartik, now our devotional practice is just beginning. Now we've had this austere month and we've done these practices. Now can we maintain through the next 12 months till next Kartik, etc.? So the devotee always is anxious to be moving forward. Without that forward movement, then our bhakti is very compromised. We have to appreciate, and it's fueled by greed, of course, by enthusiasm. It's this enthusiasm that is the fire, so to speak, and the holy name will give us automatically that type of enthusiasm that's necessary to break this boundary of material coverings that I've been in for so many lifetimes, millions and billions of lifetimes. So with that determination, we can take our vows and be inspired by Durvasa Rsi today and pray for the mercy of our Guru Vargya in particular, because without Guru, nothing will manifest whatsoever. And if Gurudev is pleased, if our Gurudev is pleased with us, then we can follow these brats carefully and successfully to purify ourselves first and simultaneously to offer that purification in the world. The world is in dire need of purified souls. We have a chance to intensify our progress towards that purificatory conclusion, or that purified state of consciousness. The world is going to hell, so to speak. We don't need to go into the social ills, etc. of the planet. We can see what's happening around us. And the world is in dire need of purified direction. It is our responsibility, every single one of us who is attending today or is practicing any sort of devotional service, we all have to become deeply responsible for the welfare of the planet where we are today. And our strength will certainly be increased many, many fold by endeavoring to follow these Kartik brats. And we can arrange for ourselves what personal brats we know will tighten our sadhana, etc., either rising earlier in the morning or chanting more. Or certainly, of course, it's all designed when we're actually able to physically go on the parikrama. When we're physically able to come to India and travel around, it's always austere for Westerners, bouncing around in buses through the dust, etc. But if we're coming with the intention of strengthening my focus by hearing so much Harikatha, in the next 30 days, we will cover so many different topics to increase our devotion and attraction to service, genuine service to Radha and Krishna. This is our heart's desire. So I'm appreciating all of you listening for so long today. I hope I've said something that will be inspiring for you all for this next upcoming month. And I'll be with you every single day, walking around through all the different places. So thank you very much. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha, kripasindhavevacha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namaha.
Thank you, Maharaj. That was the first time I've ever felt connected to Durvasa. Thank you. And I was actually at the opening ceremony with Srila Gurudev at Durvasa. I remember walking up with him, and I looked at this temple and I thought, wow, it's such an elegant looking, slim and slender and majestic edifice.
Yes.
And I turned to him, I was on his right, and I said, Gurudev, this is like the manifestation of your very physical presence in a temple because it's so elegant. And he just sort of smiled at me.
Beautiful.
There's another little pastime I had with him, but it's not relevant here. But I have a few questions for you, if I may, of different nature. Firstly, you were talking at the beginning about the Vishram Ghat, and then you said that they went to Vrindavan, but I was a bit confused. The arena of the fight is in Mathura, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Krishna is in Mathura. He's been brought there by Akrura. The gopis are still in Vrindavan, which is 8 miles up the river.
Yeah.
And when the gopis are weeping in separation, Krishna is 8 miles down the river, and their tears meet together in the Jamuna. But Krishna, all those pastimes take place in Mathura. This is when Krishna leaves Vrindavan for 100 years. He doesn't return for 100 years after he comes with Akrura.
So I love the story. I've heard it before, but it kind of came into focus today, of how the chastity of
Anasuya.
Yeah, and so the three Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, they all came at the same time, and they all end up on her lap at the same time. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Last time. When later on, when Durvasa goes to the Milk Ocean, this
to
is
where?
Really interesting. The Milk
Goes
Ocean.
Where?
Milk
Yes.
Ocean, to meet Lord Vishnu. You said you went to meet Lord Vishnu, and then immediately afterwards you said Krishna said, "I'm under control of my devotees." Is that because he was thinking he was meeting Lord Vishnu, but of course Vishnu is not different from Krishna? Is that how you were telling the story?
Well, Vishnu is like the representation of Krishna.
Yeah.
He's the aspect of Krishna. He's the manifestation from Krishna, from Mahavishnu, coming from Lord Narayan, the Purusha avatars, etc. Lord Narayan is manifesting from Krishna. So Ambarish Maharaj was personally meditating on Krishna, but the Sudarshan chakra comes from Lord Vishnu.
Right.
Lord Vishnu supplies that Sudarshan chakra. But Vishnu and Krishna are one and identical. There's no difference between that's Kshirodakshai Vishnu in this world. And that weapon is coming from Kshirodakshai Vishnu. Through the direction of Krishna himself. But that's Krishna in that's like Vishnu. That's Lord Narayan, because Krishna in Vrindavan doesn't carry Sudarshan chakra.
No.
So understand?
Yeah. No, that's really clear. And I thought it was a brilliant pastime to end the year of Mercy Grace Lila, because the major purport of the pastime is the qualities and the importance of Durvasa begging forgiveness from Ambarish. So in the same way we've been glorifying all of these acharyas, this kind of encapsulates all of that in one Lila.
Yes.
Who's Ambarish in the spiritual world?
Well, in his pastime, he hasn't manifested his Siddha form. He's a Shuddha Bhakta. That means he's a pure Bhakta. So who he eventually, his actual spiritual form is not, I have never revealed. I have never had it. I've never heard anyone.
He was an ascending sadhak.
Yes, he's and like Prahlad Maharaj, for example, I explained that is a Siddha. Prahlad Maharaj is a Siddha, but Ambarish is not.
Got you.
Ambarish is not a Siddha Bhakta. Hanumanji is a Siddha. The Pandavas are Siddha Parikas, but Ambarish is not. Ambarish is a Shuddha Bhakta.
Maharaj, and the actual temple itself in Durvasa, the Durvasa Ashram, that is where what specific aspect of the pastime happened there?
That's the residence of Durvasa Rsi, For millions and millions of years, he lived there. That's why it's a hill, Yashoda. It's called Tila, Durvasa Tila. Tila means hill. So when the Jamuna would regularly flood, that hill would not flood. So that's why Durvasa stayed in that particular location. This is in Lohavan. This is in the forest of Lohavan. And very close by is also the ashram place of Dattatreya Rishi. Dattatreya was another somewhat impersonal personality. So his ashram is also close by, as well as Parashuram. So it's that type of country. It's not like filled with bhaktas, so to speak, like when we get to Vrindavan. So it's a different mood. There's Lohavan and Mahavan is there.
Is there a book on all the Leelas of Durvasa?
There's this little book, very small handbook that you can get if you go and take a visit there. This was compiled quite recently. You get the pastimes in Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwarpa Yuga, and Kali Yuga, all in here.
Oh, nice.
Just the story, so to speak. There's practically no philosophy in it. It's just like the pastime stories,
Maybe
but very beautiful.
From Rasa Bahari.
Yes, definitely. He maybe have some copies.
Maharaj, the Titi today in the UK is Chayodashi. This is not put on the calendar, the special day for benediction for Durvasa. Do you know what Titi that is on?
The Vasant Panchami. It's the Panchami.
It's Panchami, is it?
Yeah, the Panchami is the day when that Vasant Panchami is the first day of spring. And that happens around February time.
Oh, it's not now then. Okay.
No. Now is no special tithi, except that we always traditionally go and visit his ashram at this occasion. Of course, previously, the very beginning, the ashram wasn't even on the map. So we never went there because Gurudev hadn't built it. But as soon as Gurudev had built it, he immediately invited all the pilgrims to go there and to, encourage them, etc. It's quite a lonely place. I lived there for 12 years. It's quite a sort of, it's quite a sort of out of the way place. You have to either take a boat across there or you walk across the railway bridge. And it's, when you're there and you look across the Jamuna in the early morning, you can hear all the bells in Vishramghat. There's many places of worship there in Vishramghat. It's where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first came when he comes to Mathura also. I forgot to mention that. And he rests there in his journey like it's Vishram, and he meets the Sanodiya Brahmana, and he makes the connection with this particular Brahmana who has received the initiation into Bhav Bhakti from Madhuvendra Puri. And Mahaprabhu, he stays at that Sanodiya Brahmana's house for his whole sojourn in Vrindavan and goes to visit all the forests and so on. But when you look across the river in the early morning, you see all the incense smoke coming up from all the incense. You hear all the bells, and you can hear all the mantras being chanted just across the waters on dawn. And it's very, very mystical impression you get, because Mathura crowds itself right down to the very bank of the Jamuna. And on the other side, there's absolutely nothing. On Durvasa Rishi's side, there's practically nothing, just wasteland. That's just how it is, because Jamuna floods on that side. Anyway,
just
interesting place.
Thank you for the person who just sent us the book in the Zoom chat of Durvasa, although it's in German. But we can use Google Translate. That's okay. I can sharpen up my German. Maharaj, almost ended my questions. Yamuna Devi, aren't I correct? Isn't Yamuna Devi Vishaka?
Correct, but she's also Kalindi. And for various pastimes, like, for example, when we hear of Balaram putting his plow into Jamuna Devi, this is not Vishaka, this is Kalindi that has been hesitant in running to serve Baladev when he was drinking that Varuni beverage. So he would not request Vishaka to come like that. So at different points, Vishaka is manifesting as the Jamuna, but at other times, she's in the identity of Kalindi, who is like one of the queens of Dwarka eventually.
Thank you. Maharaj, you mentioned about seeing Damdaras come every day. You also mentioned two other bhajans we should sing every day. Can you just repeat those?
Radha, Kripa, Kataksha.
Oh, Radha Kripa, yeah.
And Namami Nandanandanam.
Okay. And Namami normally we sing first, don't we?
Yes, that's to invoke Radha's mercy. And then Radha Kripa Kataksha is to invoke Krishna's mercy.
And then whenever we used to sing Namami Nandanandanam, that would used to be the bhajan Gurudev would enter the room on. It was quite beautiful. It was very well orchestrated. Do we have any other questions for Maharaj?
I saw a question there saying, someone's asking what's the difference between a Siddha and a Shuddha Bhakta? But I think I've already explained that. A Siddha Bhakta is realized in their Siddha Swarup. And a Shuddha Bhakta is someone who is on the path of realization. That's it. That's the answer.
And thank you. Somebody's just sent the URL for the book in English, so we're good to go now. Don't have to worry.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm just looking.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I don't think there are any questions. I'm just going to check, double check.
There's so many things are happening next month. Just a crowd of pastimes will be falling on our ears. I'm just looking for the order. I'm making sure I got the right order for that.
So Maharaj, we shall all be there at 10 o'clock in the morning UK time on Wednesday, 2:30 your time. Cannot wait. I'm very excited. I'm like almost like booming with energy for that start of Kartik. Very, very exciting. And I should actually thank, I almost forgot to thank you, but it's such a continuum with you because you're carrying on with Kartik. We can't see you now, Maharaj, you've disappeared.
At that very moment, my power has just this minute gone.
Well, listen, I just wanted to thank you from me. I can just about see you. I want to thank you from everybody for your amazing Qatar for the whole year, for participating, always on time, always, totally empowered by Srila Gurudev. Such beautiful Qatar. We're very grateful to you, Maharaj. And we are continuing this program in some shape or form after Kartik 2021 as well. So hopefully you'll be able to carry on with us.
Okay, great, Yashoda. Thank you. It's such a pleasure being on board. How remarkable, Yashoda, that the power went right at the very end. I think that is completely mystical. I was telling Tarun last night that every time I come on this show with you, you always say, no, the power is going to be on complete. And yet all day long, the power is going on and off. And as soon as I come on with you, the power's on fully. But we've just finished, and then now the power is gone. So,
well, I don't think it's amazing. I think we got a secret demigod in the audience helping us, and we don't know who it is. So that's the mystical element.
I don't know. You're in touch with someone, Yashoda.
Haribol.
Okay.
Dhanyavad. See everybody on Wednesday.
Haribol. Dhanyavad. Haribol. Haribol.
Haribol.
Dhanyavad.